It's wonderful to have a chat to Jeff Brayley, social researcher at station sponsor McCrindle. They bring data to life, and you do that for leaders in business, in organisations, churches, community groups. Jeff, what is the data that leaders should be looking at as they look into the future?
Leaders should be using multifactorial data. It's all about variety and lots of different data sets. We want to help leaders become really powerful at impacting and shaping a positive future. And so futuristic thinking is what we want to encourage people towards. You also need to be thinking generationally, understanding how society is changing, and also be practical, not just theoretical. Leaders should have a vision for the future and a plan for today.
Now, generations are working side by side so much more. Do you have any data around that?
Absolutely. A whole report, and there's a great infographic on the generations at work right now. 4 generations in Australia, from Gen Zs aged 16 to 30, who are motivated and looking for accessible and approachable leadership, all the way up to baby boomers that are looking for proximity when looking for new work. They want something close to home. And so we've got a great infographic there available for leaders to engage and motivate their teams effectively.
Jeff, I've seen this treasure trove. It really is. You're giving full access for 7 days. So how can people actually get access to this?
You can get the 50 plus infographics, 40 plus reports, courses, all on mccrindle.com. Search McCrindle Plus and you'll find that 7-day free trial. And we hope it empowers a positive future for all of society.
Jeff, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Station sponsor McCrindle, and you can get all that at mccrindle.com.
System of do this and then do this and then do that. I need something simple. So what I have done with these 4 words essentially is to try to categorize the main ways that we try to escape when life is overwhelming. Sometimes we deny that there's a problem or temptation going on. We kind of ignore it and think that, if I just ignore this, maybe it'll go away, or at least it won't bother me right now. Or we try to find some distraction, which is super easy right now. We are living in a world full of multiplied distractions, whether it's on social media or Netflix or, the different activities that we can take on. Pickleball's going crazy. Is pickleball a crazy thing in Australia?
It's starting a little bit more, not quite as crazy as in the States at the moment.
It's going crazy. Well, so we have all of these ways to distract ourselves. And I don't think that any of those things are in and of themselves wrong. Social media is not bad. Netflix is not necessarily bad. Pickleball is certainly not bad, but it is when it becomes my way of dealing with hard things in my life. And then sometimes when we're feeling these pressures, we escape by what I call in the book deflecting or destroying, which has to do with, if I think that there's a person in my life causing the trouble and I really want this trouble to go away, then I might actually kind of attack that person. Hopefully not physically, but there are lots of other ways that we attack people or try to run them out. The anxieties of life can sort of get so hot they boil over onto other people. And then, of course, there is the tragic reality that is so common in our world of seeking escape through death or through suicide, which is a major problem, and it's in need of ultimate compassion and help. But these are 4 categories that I think everybody, no matter how we go about escaping, can find some sense. I wonder, Clayton, if I could ask you, since we're having a conversation, which of those 4 seem to resonate with you most in your life?
Yeah, I think for me, it's somewhere between the distraction and the deflect, destroy. But,
yeah.
There's times I'm quite good at making sure I'm not being distracted and I can stay on tune. And there's other times where I'm like, you know what, I need the break is how I justify it for myself. And I'll take that break into some sort of escape. And the other one is I had a moment actually just last week where I referred to it as my wife, where there was some stuff going on. It was actually around money in our situation. And I got to like a certain point of worry. And then somehow I went so far past that into destroy and mode that my brain and my whole being was way past there.
I know how it is.
And it sort of just, as the train kept going, I'm like, I just kept feeding it, right? Because I knew it wasn't good. I knew it wasn't where, but it was just, actually, if I keep destroying this, somehow it's going to magically fix itself. So for me, I think they're the 2 that I tend to lean into when I'm going through this escape rather than those moments of trusting God.
Yeah. Makes good sense to me.
What about
Yep,
yourself? Is there
very
one
familiar.
for you that you tend to sort of lean to when you realize you're not on that right path?
Yeah, my answer might be a little bit different than yours, and I think that's why this is such an important topic, because everybody has a kind of a leaning of how their personality might try to escape from hard things. I probably am a little more bent toward distraction. I can find myself excessively scrolling on the Instagram, or kind of binging into something, just even just sitting for a long time, knowing I really need to go deal with this, or I need to go do this hard thing. And so probably for me, it's a lot of distraction is probably the main thing that I do, I think.
Yeah. So those four: denial, distraction, deflect or destroy, sort of that same category, and death are those 4 Ds.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to come back in a couple of minutes' time and talk a bit more with Rush around these. We're going to have a bit of a dive into each and sort of talk briefly. Now, obviously, he's written a book. We can't go through the whole book, but we are going to just touch on a couple of those moments. What are some of those things that we can actually do if we find ourselves in these situations to just turn that corner?
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
And we talked about the 4 common ways that Rush identified that we tend to escape in life when things get tough rather than trusting God. We talked about those 4 Ds: denial, distraction, deflect or destroy, and death. That a choice that many sadly are making around suicide or self-harm in that sense. Rush, just before we get into each of these 4 sort of categories and then talk about how do we sort of really, if we realize we're in those, get out of it. And as we mentioned earlier, we can't cover all of it. That's why there's a book and people can read it from that perspective. I just wanted to ask one overarching question. Do you think that these 4 Ds are more relevant to the Western world than perhaps, say, developing countries because of the choices we have, the freedoms we have? Is it universal in that sense, or do you think it does actually fit more with that sort of Western mindset?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have thought through that very clearly or in depth, but my sense from certainly my sense from the Bible, the way the Bible talks about people around the world, and my sense of what it means to just be human, that these efforts to escape seem to me not to be so much based in a culture that we might be born into, but they seem to me to be part of who we are, and that these are natural ways of escaping that I think can affect any person anywhere, because the real problem with escape is not outside of us, but the problem with escape is inside of us. It has to do with the way that I relate to God in my heart, or how I relate to my life in my heart. And therefore, that desire or pursuit of escape really is a part of me as a person. And that means that I need help. It's not so much that my problems are outside of me and the solutions are inside of me, but I think it's actually the opposite, that my problems are inside of me and the ultimate help is outside in God, in his word, and in his good news. So I think that these are things that everyone experiences and faces. And I'm glad for that, because I know also that there is a solution for everyone, which is found by faith in Jesus, who is the living Savior who helps us in the midst of these overwhelming seasons or times of life.
Yeah. And I think this is one of those, strange moments as we talk about the answer being Jesus as well, right? That, there's sort of that joke that often is in churches. It doesn't matter what you ask a kid in Sunday school. Yeah. They know the answer is just Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And I think we actually had a literal situation in our church once where the answer was, they were talking about animals. The answer was actually a koala. right? But the kid still said Jesus because knew that was supposed to be what the answer was. So we're not talking sort of this trying to be this flippant way of saying, oh, well, the answer to just everything is Jesus. There is a path to get there, right? But it's the fact that Jesus does work with us individually. He does have that hope. It is the absolute right answer. But there is a path that each of us have. There's a connection. There's a different way. There's a different experience. It's not trying to say it's a one size fits all, but the answer is the same as we go through. Let's talk a bit about that too, as we use each of these. And I'm especially keen, Rush, as we said, we can't give every single thing in the book. We don't have that much time. But just as we go through each of these, is there a best way to perhaps, or a way that you've sort of identified that we might get out of these situations in the first place as we go through it? So if we talk about denial, if somebody's in a denial of their situation and what it is, and that's their way of escaping from the tough reality of what's happening, is there a best way to start just thinking to move from that path onto the better path?
Yeah. The main way that I have dealt with these problems and continue to this day is by using a kind of 3-part plan that was taught to me in reference to helping other people. And that 3-part plan comes from a passage in the New Testament in the book of Matthew, where it talks about what Jesus did during his earthly ministry, that he entered our world, quite literally entered our world. And he, because he has all wisdom, understood our need as people. He understood that people were in need of a shepherd, first and foremost, someone who could really understand them and care for them. And then he also, by understanding the need, met that need himself by really bringing himself. So that plan there is really 3 words. Again, it's another simple way for me to understand what I should do is enter, understand, and bring. I talk about this in that other book that you referenced other books earlier called Die Hard Sins. But what happens in that book is I take that plan for helping other people and help those who are reading and myself to do an enter, understand, bring kind of ministry to ourselves. So when it comes to the desire to escape, or we find ourselves caught in the cycle of denial or distraction or whatever it may be, I think that what we should try to do is to enter in to that moment of struggle, which would mean to really face it and to really be willing to pull the curtain back and enter into it with hope because of Jesus, and then to understand with his help what is really going on in my life, in my heart right now. Why am I yearning to escape? Why am I giving myself to this denial, the endless scrolling as well, kind of distraction? And then to bring Christ and his answers, Jesus and his answers, to bear upon that. So this is where I really start in thinking about what should we be doing? We should be entering in, trying to understand through the word of God what's going on and bring the answers that Jesus gives to us, because he's the shepherd that we need.
And I think that, we'll go back to go through each one, but that sort of works for all of them, doesn't it? Enter,
sure,
understand, and bring. That this is this idea of, I love that, to actually, rather than try and pretend whatever's going on is not going on, let's enter that. And then, but with the spirit of understanding and asking him to help us in there. I suppose it's different for different ones of those, isn't it? That if we're in denial, okay, we might be able to do those things easier than distraction in one sense. If we're so distracted, we can't even get our moments to do that. Or if we're fully deflect or destroy mode, that's the aspects too. However, I think that's a great principle across all of them. Is there something different we should be considering when we talk about that last sort of D we talked through, that destroy, that idea of, about the death, whether it's self-harm, whether it's somebody's thinking suicide? Is it the same principles to think through? Is it we listen, you know what, if we ever get to those situations, let's talk to somebody straight away? Are there principles that you think, look, this is something really important to talk about for that one?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I think as we look at those 4 categories of escape, we find that certain ones need an extra kind of help. So, there's a difference between me scrolling on social media as my means of escape and me lashing out at another person to try to eradicate them as my problem. There's a difference there. Both are important, but one needs a kind of intensive help. And it's the one of the lashing out. I need more help to know how to handle this difficult relationship, if that's what the issue is that I'm thinking I should escape from. And then if we think also about this other kind of escape, which seeks escape through death and ultimate times of despair, a super, very sad situation that so many people are feeling themselves in, then there's another layer of compassion and help that is needed. And it's not something that I can just turn off like social media. It's not as easy as just making some kind of simple change or switching channels or switching my focus, because it is a very consuming problem or experience. So my encouragement to anyone who is thinking in those deadly kind of ways or feeling that temptation is really to see as an ultimate need for help and to seek that help from a trusted pastor or perhaps a faithful biblical counselor, or even a compassionate Christian friend who can provide that additional support. And some people don't have that. Some people have not found a community of support that could help them in those times. And for them and others, there are obviously other resources that we should make use of, whether it is in the States calling 911, which is a way to get immediate emergency help. What is it where you live?
Yeah, there's certainly the police line, but actually here in Australia, we also have the Lifeline, which is specifically around if you are having these sorts of thoughts, to give them a call. And that's 13 11 14. 13 11 14 is the Lifeline, specifically around if that's where you're currently thinking or processing in that. Please make sure you make that call before anything occurs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We also just as another line is our care line. And that's if you're just processing some of the things that Rush has been talking about today, or maybe you've heard us talk about Jesus a bit and you go, well, who's this Jesus guy? Certainly our care line is there for you as well. And that's some trained volunteers who are just ready to take your call, have a chat, pray with you as well. And that's 9583 2273 or 9583 care if you use the letter pad on your phone. 9583 care, and that Lifeline number again, 13 11 14. Rush, as we sort of finish up and go from here, I love always hearing any stories, and I'm not meaning for you to share someone's personal name, but already as you put this book out, is there a story that somebody is connected back in with you and said, oh, this has helped me like this, that you just absolutely love talking about?
I think that probably the most common story is the one in which someone will read the book and it kind of opens their eyes to something that they hadn't seen going on within them, that they might have those fleeting moments. You probably have this. I have this where when something hard is going on, I'm not thinking all the way to the point of some tragic attempt to escape, but the thought pops in my head, even just for a moment, that, this hard thing would go away if, I wasn't here, or if I could just eliminate this person from my life. And those little fleeting thoughts aren't always recognized by us. And so I think the most common, and I'm happy for it, the most common kind of testimonial that I hear about those people who read the book is just that it kind of opens up their vision to something they didn't realize was a problem in their lives. It was there, it was beneath the surface, but the book helped to give some color and some understanding and vision for this really is something that I'm struggling with, and it's affecting my life, and it's holding me back. It's maybe holding me back in some key area of my life or in my marriage or another relationship, or it's holding me back in my career, or it's holding me back in my relationship with God. And I need to really think about how this is playing out day by day for me. That's really the common testimonial, I think, that comes back. And I'm really glad for it, because that's what I hope this book will do. And that's what writing the book has done for me. Just made things a lot clearer for me as we live life.
I think as we do that too, what a blessing that is from your perspective as the author of that book, to go, well, actually, for people to first identify, it means that they can help themselves best, right? Like, we have to be able to identify things to be able to change things. And if they're even identifying that before they're getting into any of these 4Ds of actual action, right? But they're identifying the thought before, you can change the way you go about things much, much easier at that point than once you're in it as well, in that sense. So that must be just a huge, huge win from your perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, it's also interesting. This book is a part of a series of books that are similar to it in format, is that they're short. They're about 100 pages, and they all are focused on some key questions or problems like this, like escape, or, there's another one in the series. I have a psychiatric diagnosis, but I don't really know what the Bible says, or I'm really anxious about making decisions and I need help being able to see clearly what I should do in the midst of anxiety. So there are a number of books. The series is growing, and the series is called Ask the Christian Counselor. So these books are not just useful to us as readers personally, but they're great books to give to someone else, or to walk through with someone else. Or if you find yourself with a friend and you're wanting to know, how could I help and encourage my friend in this? There's a usefulness in reading the book to say, okay, this is something I can now pass along in our conversation. And I really love that about this series, and it's continuing to grow. So the opportunities for us to be equipped to help our friends is just growing right along with it.
I love that. Absolutely love that. It's what we all desire and need, whether we're the one in the situation or the one who is the friend or the family around them as well. The book, I Want to Escape, written by Rush Witt, is what we've been talking about today. And it's been wonderful having you with us, Rush. Thank you so much for giving us so much of your time as well.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been really a delight to have this conversation with you, and to really be able to talk together and share life and to get to know each other. It's really great. I love it.
My guest on Towards Understanding today, the author of the book, I Want to Escape, Reaching for Hope When Life is Too Much, Rush Witt. It's wonderful to have a chat to Jeff Braley, social researcher at station sponsor McCrindle. They bring data to life, and you do that for leaders in business, in organizations, churches, community groups. Jeff, what is the data that leaders should be looking at as they look into the future?
Leaders should be using multifactorial data. It's all about variety and lots of different data sets. We want to help leaders become really powerful at impacting and shaping a positive future. And so futuristic thinking is what we want to encourage people towards. You also need to be thinking generationally, understanding how society is changing, and also be practical, not just theoretical. Leaders should have a vision for the future and a plan for today.
Now, generations are working side by side so much more. Do you have any data around that?
Absolutely. A whole report, and there's a great infographic on the generations at work right now. 4 generations in Australia, from Gen Z's age 16 to 30, who are motivated and looking for accessible and approachable leadership, all the way up to baby boomers that are looking for proximity when looking for new work. They want something close to home. And so we've got a great infographic there available for leaders to engage and motivate their teams effectively.
Jeff, I've seen this treasure trove. It really is. You're giving full access for 7 days. So how can people actually get access to this?
You can get the 50 plus infographics, 40 plus reports, courses, all on McCrindle.com. Search McCrindle Plus and you'll find that 7-day free trial. And we hope it empowers a positive future for all of society.
Jeff, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Station sponsor McCrindle, and you can get all that at McCrindle.com.